Honde Onde Mtsan. This is Thongia, a podcast by the District 7 Legislative Office. Welcome to this edition of Thongia, a podcast by the District 7 Legislative Office. Good afternoon, Dr. Brett. Welcome back.
Well, good afternoon to you, Mr. Wheaton.
Hey, a little warm outside, but it's about to change.
Yeah,
We've got
well,
fall coming.
my bony legs are feeling it right now on the knees right here. I don't have any more muscle in there.
Bony legs, bony, all your joints.
That's enough. That's enough. Good to be back with you.
Yeah. Well, we have a special guest with us today on this episode here. I think a lot of him. He's when I was thinking about him coming to this podcast edition, he's really the glue, cultural glue that keeps our identity going. He knows a lot about our Kiowa ways, and we wanted to have him on this episode to talk about upcoming events. But he's probably, I will say, he's probably the most knowledgeable person when it comes to Kiowa values, Kiowa ways. Knows all our songs, traditions, because he was raised that way, and I think all of our people think of him as kind of that person that we all go to when we need cultural advice or spiritual advice or just advice, period. He's very knowledgeable because of it. He's lived it. And so our guest today is Dr. Phil Joe Fish DuPoint, Topoi Koi Kong, and his Kiowa name. And I'm thankful, Segi. You made it to Norman, Oklahoma.
Yeah. Oh yes, Segi. Yeah. I'm all excited about this, and it's something that I've been thinking. Well, what am I going to say? What am I going to talk about? But I know what I'm going to talk about.
We'll get it going for you here.
You bet.
Just a little visit right now instead of a formal podcast. Just get Kiowa people together, as you well know. Warren said we just visit with one another at times. And sometimes questions come up are relevant to what we got you here. But I think the term culture, Warren mentioned it will put everything into context for me with what I want to talk to you about. And culture to me is defined as primarily your customs, your ceremonies, your values, your attitudes, your identity as that person. So Kiowa culture is very unique, and I sure like to see it kept that way as we move along. But people like yourself are critical to maintaining and perpetuating it. So I agree with what he's saying in terms of treasures. We need to start recognizing that people formally as a tribal government.
Sure. Naming
our treasures that are people like yourself, Joe Fish. So it's really great to have you down here. It's good to see you once every, 5 years or something like that?
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Well, Segi, if you would, introduce yourself, and, I brought you on the podcast because we got our ceremony coming up, the Top Congo, October 12th and 13th, and what I really wanted you to kind of come and visit with us about culture and Kiowas, but even you're the principal singer for our Kiowa Black Leggings Warriors Society, and I know you told me, I forgot how many years. You'll probably remember more than I will, like when you were installed in that position, and just how did it come to be, and how does that make you feel?
Okay, so here we go. So we're gonna start day one. Okay, I'm gonna say back in the '60s, well, during the revival at that time in '58. Okay. Of course, I was just a very, very young man at that time, and my mother, she was always involved in things like that. Well, I guess kind of like with our traditions and cultural things like that. Along with, of course, my dad, he was a World War II veteran, and my grandpa was a World War I veteran. Well, how that came to be, I was proud of that, and I was liking it is what I was, because my people were soldiers at that time. They were in the military, and then along with that, well, then my cousins, which we didn't recognize them as cousins. We called them brothers.
Oh,
same way with our female, we called them sisters. So that's how that. That's the only thing I knew at that time. Okay, and so with that, well, then my mother, during the revival and all this and that, she would always since her companion and her brothers and her nephews, her sons, I guess I'm going to say, what it was always, they all were in the military, and so she to support them. Well, she'd always go camp. Mm-hmm. She'd always go camp. So they put up camp, and they would. I mean, they just didn't go 2-3 days before. They went that Monday, or they were at least there a whole week, getting things in order and all this. And then later on, well, when they had this organization, what they did was they had, I guess, a auxiliary. And she was involved with that, and those women that were in the auxiliary, of course, their relatives served in the same as her, and so it was kind of like no family was any better than any other family. They were all pretty much the same, and they were all equal. And then from that, I guess the women folk, they had their things that they had to do in order to support their families and especially their men folk. And so with that, then they do all the cooking, they put all the camp up. Well, the physical stuff the men took care of, but then the women's stuff like cooking, washing clothes and all this and that, Well, kind of like basically the camp stuff. That's what they took care of. So it was just like at home.
Yeah.
So they had their things that they would do. And so with that, then that's how I got introduced to it. Mm-hmm. And so with that, of course, I was a young guy. I was running around there, playing around, doing this and that. And then until the actual ceremony took place. Then at that particular time, I'd be running around and doing this. And then I'd it's kind of like, I would hear a certain tune, a song that they were singing or whatever, and then next thing I knew, I was singing along with them. And so, in other words, I was sucking it up, I was bagging it up, And then I said, well, one of these days I'm gonna sit with those men. And then I look at the drum then, and all the older men, they were sitting there, And what fascinated with me was they had braids. They had braids. They had straight braided hair, and then they had yarn braided hair. Man, I thought that was something, Mm-hmm. And then they just sit there and they provide all that music. And then so what I didn't know was that there was different types of music at that time, because I seen them do all these dances and everything, all this, and the women folk, they what I see nowadays, I didn't see back in the time that I seen it during the revival. I seen so much participation there. That arena was full. They had what they call these war mother songs, soldier dance songs. That arena was jam packed with all these women. They were older women just barely getting around with canes and walkers and all this and that, But they were out there, they were dancing because they loved that their men folk made it back during that time, and that's what they were very, very proud of. Mm-hmm. And so, but like nowadays, modern times, you just kind of, you want to say something to these girls or something, but that wasn't your place as a man. That was the mom, grandma, and aunties. That was their job there to, as far as getting participation with that. And then after that, they would do scalp dance, the victory dance, and that arena there was just jam packed full of women, all dressed. They didn't look high or anyway. They were dressed to the T. Mm-hmm. And so with that, then that was just that's something that I seen and I witnessed. And so with that, then later on, here come the men. And the way that I see it now, back then we used to dance twice a year. We dance in the springtime and then we dance in the fall time. Mm-hmm. And then, so if you want going to come to the spring celebration, you put in your leave for that springtime. And then, well, sometimes even to the fall time. But then it was kind of like you took your vacations or whatever at that time, and then you came home to participate in that. And so with that, well, then like now we only dance once a year. We dance once a year, and from my understanding, I know that our veterans, I guess I kind of more or less use modern day. What am I trying to say? I use modern day wording. Okay, so there would be buku men at that time, and then now it's just kind of it gets to where you pretty well know who's going to be there.
Yeah.
And it's the same each year. It's the same ones. But what about all these other guys? They wanted to join. They wanted to put down. My understanding was the criteria that they set up back then during the revival was that, okay, number one, you had to be an enrolled member of the Kiowa tribe. Mm-hmm. Number two, you had to serve in any branch of the military. Mm-hmm. Okay? And then the third criteria was you had to have an honorable discharge. Oh. That's the only way that you could. That's why I always, when I talk about it or say that's a unique organization, unique society that we have within the Kiowa tribe, and we should be very, very proud of it. We say that we're supportive of our warriors and stuff like that. Well, only way I can see that is we got to be there, people. We've got to be there. We've got to show our people, even our young warriors that are still overseas to this day, that we're behind them.
Yeah.
We support them. And so with that, we're always praying for them, irregardless of whatever religion or whatever denomination that we choose to pray. But we should be there, and we should pray as one for them, even those that are serving at this time.
Oh.
And then for them to come back home to us, to be well, their minds clear again, or whatever. But there's a lot of things that we don't understand that the veteran, the military people, they see a lot of things that we never see. No. We don't. We can't even think about, what they see or why. We can probably think about it, but as far as actually seeing it and all this net, no. I'm going to be the first to say that. And so with that, and then with that, well then, okay. Oh, it was in. I'm going to say it was in May 1978. 1978. My uncles, Gus Palmer, Dixon Palmer, George Palmer. They came to my house. I lived north of Anadarko there. Well, they call it Kettle Road. I was the third house down. I was living there. And then I seen my Uncle Gus, his truck pulled up. And I went out there and I said, hey, y'all get off. Y'all come on in, And in my mind, I was thinking, well, what they doing here, Well, they come for something. So anyway, so I said, come on in, At that time, when somebody drives up, you don't say, what you want or what can I do for you? You didn't say that. You invited them in.
Yeah.
You told them to come on in. Even if you was home yourself, well, then you go in there and fix some coffee or whatever, cold drinks or get them a glass of water. And you said, come on, y'all sit down. You didn't ask them what they wanted or this and that. You just invited them in. You sat down, and what you did, you just kind of more or less, just you waited on them. Mm-hmm. You waited on them to say, okay, well, we come to see you about something. We want to talk to you about something. Then that's when you gave in. Said, okay. Well, back then you used to say, non-do. Mm-hmm. What is it? And so with that, well, then they come in, they sit down. And so, well, I knew when I was going to do that, I was going to open a can of worms. but I did. I said, cool. Nando, what do y'all, what can I do for y'all? They said, well, okay. Well, we come to ask you something. We want you to take care of our drum. I said, take care of your drum? I thought, well, okay, well, bring it to me and I can put it away and all this and that, take care of it and everything. But they meant the whole show, I guess, the whole singing and all this and that. So I was specific. I said, well, so you just want me to like heat it up, bring it down when we have our celebrations and stuff and all? They said, no, we want you to take care of our music too. I said, God. I said, okay. And they gave me the reasons why they thought about me and all this and that. And where the key was my grandpa. My grandpa was their sergeant at arms when they first formed their officers, because he was a World War I vet. And so I took that to heart. And I said, well, okay, let me go see your sister. Let me go see your sister and let me tell her what y'all are asking of me and all this and that. And it's not that I'm going to get her permission, but I want her opinion about things. Maybe there's some things I might need to know and all this and that. So they said, well, okay, go ahead. But when you get through, you call, Gus said, you call me. So, okay. So I went to Carnegie. And I went to my mom's house. I said, call. She said, don't do it. I said, Aingo, no, Bobby. They come and they ask me something. So now I want your opinion. So anyway, I told her what they did and what they wanted and what they asked. And she said, okay, you want my opinion? I'm going to give you my opinion. This is what I think. That's a man's thing, so I really don't have nothing to say about it, but there's some things that I want to mention to you about. I said, okay. So I told her all this, and then she said, okay, you ready? I said, well, yeah. She said, okay, now, if you're going to accept it, she said, I want total dedication from you. I said, okay. I said, well, what do you mean by total dedication? She said, anytime they have anything, you're to be there. Anytime that they ask you for whatever, you're going to be there for them. I said, okay. And then as far as camping, I'm going to be there with you, camp with you, but then there's going to be a time I'm going to be gone. And then with that, you carry on. Mm-hmm. I said, okay. I said, all right, well, that's why I wanted to know. That's why I come to see you. So with that, well, then she said, well, okay, can you kind of tell me what you're thinking about doing? I said, I'm thinking about accepting. I'm thinking about, since they're my uncles, and I have respect for them and all this and that, plus my Bobbies, my brothers, and then my other dads and my uncles, the reason why I'm going to go ahead. So she said, well, just remember what I told you. I said, okay. So I went back and I called Gus. I said, y'all come on up to the house. I got an answer for y'all. So they did. They did. They came. They said, well, we'll be there Wednesday. I said, okay. They came. I said, y'all get off. Come on in. Baseball, y'all sit down. Cool. This is what I'm going to do. I said, I'm going to go ahead and take it. I'm going to go ahead and take it. And so with that, y'all are going to have to help me in the beginning. Y'all going to have to help me in the beginning. Some of the songs I know, some of the ceremonies, I know the scalp dance, the victory dance, the different parts, things that we do in there. I said, I watch and I listen. I learned. So with that, but then again, y'all are going to have to help me along, I said, if there's more songs that I need to learn and everything, That's where y'all come in. Mm-hmm. They got happy. They said, oh, good. And they said, okay, hito. So they went out to the truck. And they brought me this huge basket of groceries, full all the way to the top. And on the top was a full layer of meat. And then on top of that, there was a blanket. And I had nothing but $20 bills on there, pinned to there, you know. They said, this ain't in payment, but this is for you. Your home here and everything, because we came in, we asked you to do something for us, a society. So this is how it is. So with that, well, I told them, I was gonna tell them, no, y'all don't need to do that. Y'all are my uncles, and that's why I want to do it and all this and that. But then I didn't want to. It's not to disrupt or say anything out of the way, but not to acknowledge them or anything. But I had to acknowledge them. But that was a gift from them and their society.
Oh.
So with that, that's why I accepted. So I said, okay. I said, well, y'all gonna stay for supper and stuff, just kind of teasing around with them. They said, nah, well. I said, well, I can't eat all this meat, put it in the freezer. I said, oh, okay. So anyway, that's how it come to be. Oh. Since that time, it was May 1978. Oh. So with that, from that time, all the way up to now, what is this?
Almost 50 years.
Yeah. Dang close.
All your life almost.
And so what I did was I only missed twice. First time I missed, that was in May. And my grandson came from California, and he picked me up, and he wanted to take me to this powwow in Kinder, Louisiana. Mm-hmm. So I gave in to him. I said, let's go. He said, but I can have you back here Sunday. Mm-hmm. I said, okay. So, I knew better, but with your grandkids, you can't say, So there I went, and then sure enough, then he said, well, Grandpa, I said, no, Cone. He said, no. He said, we're gonna leave tomorrow. I said, I didn't say. Well, I wanted to say, well, you said, and you
give me back.
But I just kind of more or less, okay. Mm-hmm. So it was that time, and then the second time is when I went up to Sioux City, Iowa, and that's when I had my amputation. Mm-hmm. And so then at that time, I asked my brother Vernon Kozak to help me out and take care of that program for me, and he did, And so with that, well, then after that, that was the only two times I've missed. Mm-hmm. But every year I used to be there in the springtime and in the fall time. Then they just went to the fall time. Mm-hmm. So with that, all this time, and actually, I'm going to tell you, the fall time, it was always Red River time. Mm-hmm. So there was always that OU Texas game every year. Those that went down to the Cotton Bowl, watched the game, they did, but they make it back that Sunday for that Sunday afternoon. Yeah. So there was a couple times. Well, there was several years that there was just me. One time there was only two of us. Mm-hmm. Next time there was three of us. That Saturday afternoon.
Singers.
Yep. Wow. Well, we carried it on. Mm-hmm. We carried on. And so then after that, then now, it's just kind of like we could have 2-3 drums out there. Mm-hmm. But I've always been told, Tonkonga, Taipigo, 4th of July, in Kiowa, you just only use one drum.
One drum. Huh.
So but then we got, there's about 20, well, most I've counted was 25. Most I counted was 25, mm-hmm. And that's what what made me smile and what uplifted me was the young ones. Mm-hmm. So when they were there and everything, I would never tell them, no, y'all make room now. I wouldn't do that, but because of these young guys and what they know and what they to hear them, well, I know that's going to go on.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to go on.
Yeah.
So you devoted all your life, I'm going to say it that way, to this dedication concept that she asked you about. And what about the values of that in terms of the younger people today? Do you feel like they're as prone to dedicate themselves to such things, or has there been some changes in your opinion as far as younger people?
Well, it hasn't really done any changes to me, but I always make sure that, okay, now y'all gonna have to pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all are gonna really have to pay attention, because what I know, I said, well, you can probably come to me and I can put it on tape for you, but the thing is, and this and that, what they're calling for. Well, if you know that, well, then I know this culture is going to go on. This singing is going to go on for years, because there's going to come a day and time to where you're going to hopefully you're going to feel the same way that I do.
Oh.
And then, so with that, you're going to make sure that it's going to go to the next generation.
Yeah.
And then you're just going to have to say, okay, you tell them the same thing that I'm telling you, because that way it goes to their next generation. So it's going to go. It's going to go. I said, not only this Black Day or Tonga, but it's all, I'm going to say all our music.
Yeah.
I mean, we Kiowas, we're gifted.
Yeah.
We're gifted.
So
God gifted us the knowledge of song, because we got so much music that pertains to certain events, certain things within our tribe, that if we don't preserve them, or we don't try to carry them on or pass them on, well then. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, I kind of more or less understand it now. But then again, like these commercial recordings and stuff we do, okay, we do those, but then there's only certain music.
Yeah.
Certain music that we go ahead, we record, But then again, there's we as Kiowas, some of our own music that I know y'all don't hear all the time, maybe just certain time of the year or something, all this. But then again, y'all want to know the translations, what they mean. I'm talking about warm weather songs. I'm talking about, I said, okay, now the thing is, us 49ers, well, we're dying off. Mm-hmm. The actual 49, from what I seen back in the day and all this and that, well, prior to that, I'm going to go all the way back to the Indian Fair. Okay, this is where 49 comes from what I've been told. At the beginning, okay, it's kind of like a war journey. War journey songs is how they were. When these guys get ready to go on a raid, if they're going to go on a revenge raid, horse raid, captives, well, then they would go around to each camp and they would ask them, okay, I'm going to go on a raid. Okay, I'm going on a revenge raid. These guys, they they killed our people. Now I'm going to go back and do the same to them. Mm-hmm. So you want to join me? Okay. If you are, well, then go over to my camp, wait in my lodge there. And so with that, well, then they would. Okay. So he went all through camp, telling the people what he was going to do. And then those that agreed, they would be there. Then he said, well, we're going to get ready, and then we're going to go. So when they left, they rode out of camp to wherever they were going and whatever they're going to do. Well, then those were the songs that they sung at that time. And at that time, we didn't have we didn't know any English language or anything like that, So my Blackjack Daisy or One Night Forward, it didn't fit at that time. But then again, what they did, they just sung these, they were, I call them vocables. They were just the tunes. They would sing them. They'd be going out, and then so with that, well, they would go to the bundles that we have, and they would pray that they'd have a successful raid. And if they did, well, then they would, when they come back, well, they would bring them something. So, and that was scouts.
Oh.
See, so they would go out and they'd do it so that their raid was a success, or what it was won. Well, then they bring those back to them, And then so with that, then that's when the women folk, they heard him singing and all this and that. So they said, well, they must have won. They must have won because they're singing. And so when they come back, well, then they go out there and they'd meet them. Mm-hmm. And then whatever trophies they had, well, they get those trophies. Then they turn around, they go back into camp. And then when they got back into camp, well, then that's when they would scout dance. They'd scout dance, and then they'd victory dance. And then so that's why I'm saying war journeys. That's how those come in. Then later on, as time went on, of course, we had to settle down and everything. Well, then when they moved the fair from Craterville Park up to Anadarko. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then at that time, that's when, we still had the grandstand there, and everybody was they was enjoying the fair, the dancing there and all that took place there. Then afterwards, well, then everybody went back to their camp and all, except those that they said, well, we're gonna war journey tonight. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna meet back here behind the grandstand. So but then at the meantime, there was a carnival out in the front there. Mm-hmm. So they would go and they kind of go look around there and everything and check it out. Well, it was after the gold rush. It was after the gold rush. This guy, he brought his wagon in and all this. He had his dance hall girls and all this and that, And he said, hey, you guys come on in. Check the girls with 49 out, So with that, so they were out there and they said they see one. They said, I guess they get an eyeful and all this and that, And they said, well, I want to see. They said, well, here. They all chipped in and gave him some change. And so he went on in there to check it out and everything. And, of course, he liked what he seen and everything. So when he came out, well, right now they all gathering. What you see? He said, you guys need to go in there and check it out yourself. So they'd all throw in change. And so they went in there, and, of course, that's where they seen what they liked. And so with that, then after that, they went out behind the grandstand. Then at that time, well, there was 13 tribes within the expo, but what they did was each tribe had their own tribal groups, I guess, and they just kind of gathered around there. Now whether they called it war journey or whatever, but they seen what the Kiowas were doing. The Kiowas and the Comanches, they'd be over there and they kind of doing their own thing, and they just enjoying themselves, having a good time. Well, somewhere along in there, they said, well, okay, let's take a break. Mm-hmm. So they did. So they was all standing around smoking a cigarette, this kind of just drinking a pop or whatever they had, And then they said, well, and then right over here, standing on the side, there was all their chorus girls, I would say. They all stand there and all of a sudden, and they said, hey, what's this? So that one guy said, hey, come on now, y'all come see the girls of 49. And he was pointing at the girls over there, the women folk over there. And then naturally they got shamed. Don't call us that, because they seen it too. So right there.
That's where a name got the name.
That's where the name stuck. It's just like a dang nickname.
Nickname in it.
Yeah. The girls of 49, so that's where 49... That's where it come from.
That's where he got that name from.
And then, so from that time on, it came on. Then at that time, then even there at that time, they had Model Ts and all this and that. So that's where One-Eyed Fort come from, and Blackjack Daisy, and all those word songs. Sure. Then later on, there was different ones that made songs, or they got songs and they put English words into them, and so there was, That's how all that came about, and that's through that. 49 is actually among the Kiowas. It's actually war journey.
Yeah.
And so with that, that's how I got involved with Blackjack Daisy and all them, because I was one of them.
Yeah.
Well, I would say I was a chief. Because I used to, every time they see me, they knew there was gonna be a 49,
49.
So with that, and that's all throughout the state of Oklahoma,
Yeah.
Throughout the nation.
Yeah, and so with that, and then like this Black Vegans, same way with my story about the Gork clan, how I got involved in that was even back in the day, like I said, my grandpa, he was a veteran and all that. Well, it just so happened that was first of the month, he got his pension. So he got his pension, so we had camp set up down at the park at Carnegie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he got me, took me uptown, him and Grandma, and then we went in. There used to be a clothing store called Dixie Store.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We went in there, and then that's what they did. They just said they held the shirt up to me like
Wardrobe.
that. Yeah, I had a wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And they bought everything I had was new. And so we went on and said, well, let's go back to camp. So I said, all right. Well, when we was going back, well, then right coming out of the park, there's a big old firecracker stand right there.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, come on, okay, so now we got your clothes now. You went along, now we're going to go along with you. Whatever you want. God, there's all kind of firecrackers in there and everything, So I got what I wanted. I said, give me some of the. I had two big brown grocery sacks like that. Just loaded. Yeah.
Loaded down.
Yeah, just firecrackers. I said, God, dogs, I'm going to have a ball. So anyway, so we got back down there, and then at that time they said, well, okay, you need to take a bath. So they said, I said, all right. Okay. Well, I knew I had firecrackers. So I said, heck yeah, I'm jumping there. So I had a big old tub they took down there. Big old tub. They put water in there, cold water, and they warmed it up with some hot water. And so with that, well, then while I was scrubbing down and everything, I was squeaky clean. So with that, then they laid my clothes out on the bed like that, and then said, all right. And then they said, well, okay, come on now. The grandpa got me and took me by the arm. We went up to the drum. We got there by the drum, and all his buddies were there. Mm-hmm. All them older men, And they said, set him over there. They set me between this old man, his name was Willie Horse, and this other man, his name was James Humphrey. They call him Honey Hole. Mm-hmm. So you sit right there. So they're my two grandpas, so I sit right in, the two big guys, and then I was this little guy sitting right there. Well, Honey Hole, he gave me my first drumstick. He said, Ma, come. So okay. So we got going and everything. Well, then here come. My uncle was in charge of the drum. Well, he was kind of like the hit singer. And so with that, well, here come my other grandpa. He sat by the side of him. And then we was going to get started. And he said, what about him? And he said, well, what's the matter with him? He said, he needs to go play. He needs to get it. This is man thing. But my uncle, he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to do it. He said, no, but they were talking Kiowa, and I could understand, He said, no, because if I tell him that, when he goes back to camp, you'd be dead, because my grandma was his mother-in-law. See, he said, no, and then my grandpa was his father-in-law, too. No, I don't want to do that. I can't. He said, you do it. If you want it that way, but I could see my uncle's thinking. He didn't want it either, because at that time I was the only youngest one that sat with them at that time. Because at that time they only picked 10, and I was the 11th one. Mm-hmm. So with that, well then here come my uncle. He said, all right, so you get your chair, go ahead, go back to the camp. You can come back tonight when they do that. They call it intertribal singing. Mm-hmm. He said, them guys said you can sit with them, and but this one here, he said, it's just men only. Mm-hmm. So, well, me, I said, well, I got 2 sacks of firecrackers sitting at the house, sitting at the camp, so I'm going to go. So I got up, there I went. I took off. Got over there, and of course, this other guy, they was kind of mumbling and everything, because they were in disagreements, So anyway, I went. So I getting a change, and my grandpa, he was getting water. He came back, and my grandma told him, said, "Your grandson's in there. You better go check him." I don't know. He come back. He said, "All right." Well, he said, "Well, he's just happy as can be." He said, "Well, he's got firecrackers in there." So anyway, so he came in there. He said, "No, what you doing in here?" I said, "Well, they told me to get up and come on, and I can come back tonight and sing." And he said, "Come on." Damn, so he had me by the arms, dragged me out there, and I went. Mm-hmm. Got over there, and then he stood there at that drum, and he said, This is how my grandpa was. He was a straightforward man." Mm-hmm. He said, "What the hell did y'all run my grandson off for?" Mm-hmm. And they knew that tone of voice. They knew he meant business. Mm-hmm. He said, "I drink with you guys. Drink with you guys, and y'all always talking about him, saying I need to bring him around and everything." Well, I did. And then what y'all do? Y'all turn around and ran him off. He said, "You know what?" He said, "That's all right." He said, "That's all right." He said, "But I'm going to tell you one thing. One of these days, y'all are going to rely on him. Mm-hmm. Y'all are going to ask him for help. And I hope he tells y'all to go to hell." That's what he said. My grandpa, that's what he said. And so with that, he said, come on. And so Dad just dragging me back to the camp. He said, "Go ahead." He said, "These, you don't pop these until tonight when it's dark. These, you go ahead and have at it." So anyway, with that, I'll always remember that. Mm-hmm. And then there were some of those older men that they would always tell me that story, about this. "Do you remember that?" So, "Well, yeah, I do." Then it come to be.
Yeah. Full circle.
A little while after that, well, then that same uncle that told me that, well, down there at Taipei Park, we was both hit singers. He had the afternoon program, I had the night. Mm-hmm. But he came up to the house. I seen this. He drove in, and then he got off. I said, "I wonder what he wants." But anyway, I said, "Hey, get off. Come on in." He said, "Yeah. Come on in. Besar, sit down." He sit down and said, "You want something to drink or anything?" Mm-hmm. He said, "No." He said, "Yeah." He said, "I come to ask you something." Mm-hmm. And then I wanted to smile and everything, but then I said, "Nando, what is it?" He said, "Well, it come to pass. Remember what your grandpa said?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, down at Taipei Park," he said, we're hit singers, me and you." Mm-hmm. He said, "But I can't handle the afternoon like I did once upon a time. So I want you to come down there and help me." Mm-hmm. He said, "But if you tell me what your grandpa said," he said, "that's all right." He said, "I'll accept it." Mm-hmm. But I couldn't bring myself to do that. So I said, "Yeah, okay." So yeah, I'll be down there.
Oh.
And so see it come full circle. So that's why any young person that comes sit at a drum where I'm at or I'm in charge, I can never say no.
Yeah.
Because I lived it. I went through it. See. And so with that, well then after that, well then different types of music and all that, it all come around and everything, like the hymns.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
Pure music, no problem. Mm-hmm. There's different songs we got, like for Mother's Day, Father's Day, just different veteran songs.
Birthday.
Yeah, birthday songs, mm-hmm. Things like those type of songs. I got them up here. This is my recorder up here.
Yeah.
This is my recorder up here.
I say you got them here.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to ask you real quickly. I had a chance. Spirit.
Yeah.
And when you get it up here, you got it intellectually. Down here, you got it in your heart.
Yeah.
That's the spirit. And to me, that's the essence of our Kiowa people
Right.
singing. It's in their hearts.
Right.
Their spirit. Because whenever you got the spirit, you go out there, it's contagious.
Yeah.
From gourd dancing to war dancing to 49 and even. When you eat that spirit, you find yourself joining in if you know appear how to sing them, and you feel good. You feel real good about yourself.
And you're right. Yeah. You're right, because once you get in here, you get that spirit. That spirit's going to move you.
Yes, yes.
It's going to move you. What I mean by that is you're either going to tap your foot, you're going to be tapping on the side here with your hand, or you'll be bobbing your head, But that's that spirit. And the Kiowas have spirituality in their music.
Definitely. That's why younger ones, it's important that they understand the spirit. How do you teach the spirit? That's the question that I would like to ask a lot of older people. I know how I teach it, but I come from more a Christian perspective that way than I do from the cultural perspective. But once you learn the spirit, once you get that spirit, you're on, as I say. You can rock and roll the rest of your life.
You bet you, boy.
When it comes
to
singing, etc.
Because, like, for instance, I'm at the house. I'm just sitting there.
Yeah.
And after a while, I'm kind of... And after a while, hell, I got a powwow going on, or I got a revival going on, or, that's and then with that, well, then that's when I got it. It's that spirit. And then so however I feel that day, through that music and that song and everything, well, it brings me out of it. Mm-hmm. It brings me out of it. And that's just something that, well, I guess the deal is to get these young people to understand that.
Yeah.
And I guess for them, only way for them to really understand and get the feeling of it is to experience it. Mm-hmm. Experience it. Yeah. Okay, this is a story about a song that how it came to be, and it was composed by my mother. And I'd say I was about say maybe 10, 11 years old at that time, and I was at the house, and we got up, and then she was in there. She was cooking breakfast, and then at that time, I want to say her significant other was there in the house, and he was kind of fooling with things. And then he came in there and he said, "Come here, come on in here. I want you to listen to this." So I said, "Okay." So I went in there, and then he brought out a tape recorder and all this. He said, "Listen," he said, "this is your mom, and this is what I got last night." He said what it was, he said the song came to her, and she was singing it in her dream. She was asleep, she had her eyes closed, and she was singing this song. And so I said, I got to get that song. So he said, I was trying to figure out where my tape recorder was. And he said, I finally found out where it was, so I went and I got it. And I put a tape in there and everything, and he said, so I turned it on. And so I set it by her, and she was singing with her eyes open and all, her eyes closed and all this, Then she opened it, but it looked like she was awake. Then I made motions in front of her, but it was she didn't blink or anything. So I said, oh, okay, all right. And so he said, then she finished that song. And then so I said, well, okay. So he punched stop and all this, and he was thinking about it. He said, okay. And then so a couple hours later, she woke up. She went in the kitchen, and she was getting things ready. And then she was kind of like, she was humming. It's kind of like she was looking for a song or looking for whatever, And so I got up and I said, hey, is this what you're looking for? And then you punched that play button, and it was her singing. She said, yeah. But where did you get it? He said, you was singing it last night. She said, yeah. And it goes up, we ya ya ya, oh we ya 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 ha ya, oh we ya ya, oh we ya 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 ya, ho we ya ya, ho we ya ya, we yo 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 he hey yo hey yo yo hey yo and hey yo we yo 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 ho we yo we yo yo he hey yo hey yo hey yo and hey yo ho yo yo ho yo yo ho yo he hey yo hey and hey yo yo ho yo he hey yo whoop whoop whoop.
Oh, guess on
And
me.
so that was the song she was singing, and she said, and that's a Breitligan song. So and then see, she used to be a former president of the auxiliary, but anyway, that's how she fit it in there. She said, so that's our song. That's
Oh,
our song. So anytime y'all do anything over there, y'all sing that song. So you be, she said, I'm gonna leave it up to you to let everybody else know. So with that, I said, oh, okay. And so like last year we was there, and then my daughter was there. My daughter was there, and her son was in the military, but now he did his time, so he's out. And then so with that, well then they moved up to Oregon, and they used to live here in Norman. This is where they left from, and he's an attorney, so that's where he went. But last year they were there, and it's the first time I've seen him there. You know, they've been married for some time, and so with that, well, I started that song, and then so I told Phyllis there. I said, "Where's he at? Where's he at?" And she said, "I'll go get him." So she went and got him. We took him out there, and we danced with him.
mm-hmm.
You know, well, he's a Mexican. You know, so but anyway, so yeah. So anyway, first time, well, I made him dance. I made him dance because he's with my daughter there, and he represented well his people, you know, and then the other military people there, plus the ones that were there. So with that, it turned out real good, you know,
Oh,
real good, and that's what I liked, and it surprised my daughter. You know, she said, "God, I didn't know you was gonna." Well, I didn't either. But see, we're talking about that spirit.
The
That
spirit.
spirit got us.
Yeah.
oh,
See, and so with that, well, then that's how things come about, you know. So
They still do naming?
yeah,
Black Lincoln?
yeah, they sure do.
That's the last place I heard my grandpa when he did his naming ceremony for us.
Yeah.
So I forget who it was for.
Yeah,
But he did the old-fashioned way or the old traditional way. And very impressive
Yeah.
to sit back and listen and watch him
Yeah.
before he did that. He spoke with a loud voice anyway,
Yeah.
Grandpa did.
yeah,
Preacher.
yeah. You bet
Scared me
you
when he
are.
preached.
Yeah, yeah,
You hear me?
Yeah.
Right.
ah,
Old
cool.
times. Thank
Good.
you. Thank you for that song. Joe Fish, it's been great hearing from you again. I'm going to say this to you in a respectful way. Nothing different than what we've talked about before, personally, between you and I and whoever listening. So the same spirit's there all the time. That's what I'm saying. When it comes to the younger people, at times I'm concerned that they don't know what we're talking about entirely in terms of the spirit itself. So I'm encouraging the tribal government as much as I can to initiate some engagement with our people like yourself to go out and not only teach the songs, the sound, but the spirit of it itself. I think it's imperative that we do that to keep our grounding, that like you have right now, and you're singing and dancing, the culture itself, I should say, identity. I'm so concerned that a lot of our younger people, our Cairo people, are not being taught because those parents don't know what to teach. They weren't taught as well as you were,
Right.
and to some extent myself. I chose to go a different direction with it in terms of academics. You got into the cultural aspect of it, which I respect a great deal. So I would encourage you and other people to encourage our government and other people to initiate something that's permanent within the tribe to institutionalize our identity factors, an institute where you can teach from the Cairo perspective, not depend on the state or federal government or the local government to teach. We teach it from what we see. Haven't seen it yet. They call it education. No, there's more to it. It's a component. It's a tool of education. Institutes are. So I would encourage you to encourage that with your fellow people or your singers or other people. Let's do something while we can. Otherwise, we're going to be gone soon, too, real quick. As far as that's concerned.
And one of the things I'm going to say and that I'm very, very proud of. There's this young. Well, he's a kid. He's a kid. I know. I've seen him. I've raised him. He's raised up with me and everything, and I know him. He knows me personally, and so with that, I'm very, very proud of this boy. Right now, he's a boy. Right now, but he's growing. But that boy, I'm going to say he's another Joe Fish.
Yeah.
He's another Joe Fish because of what he knows. And I mean, there was a dance that we had for my little sister. She's outgoing Kiowa Princess. He was there, and he said, and he just, I mean, he looked like an adult.
Yeah, I understand.
He had jeans on, he had boots on, he had a long sleeve shirt on, he had a hat on, he had a bolo tie on. And not only that, he kept in time with everything. And he even went as far as starting a song, several songs. Yeah. And even word songs. And I thought, God, don't. I said, and then, no. It just, well, he brought tears to my eyes because I seen myself in him.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, as long as I'm here, he's not going to go through what I went through. See? And so with that, I said, and because of him, I know my culture, my traditions are going to go on. Because one of these days, he's going to be teaching just like I did.
Oh.
There's something that he's going to leave with our people.
Oh.
Yep.
Well, from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say, down there, ho, for coming here and being on our podcast. I feel like we could talk for about all day and record all week and get some good episodes. So I want to invite you back later on, as you're getting ready. Maybe there might be another thought. You want to record something.
Oh, yes.
You let us know, and we'll get a podcast scheduled here. And I thank you on behalf of our people, for the work you've done all these many years. And I realize that, we need to listen and learn as much as we can from yourself, elders in our community that are, we don't have any elders hardly anymore, and where we used to, just even going back, I see it when I go back to Red Buffalo Hall or Koigurute Hall now, all our elders are gone. And it seems like it was in a blink of an eye. And you've probably seen that too. Your elders were different elders, old people that were alive. And we gotta preserve what we can, record what we can, learn what we can, because otherwise, our identity is always going to be a challenge for us. And, our Kiowa ways, I want to see those preserved, and I want to see our values preserved. And we got to find. I agree with Dr. Brad. Our government. We need to institutionalize what that is. Cultural education, cultural educational sovereignty, whatever you want to call it. I think we have to develop that program, and you're a big part of that. And so I applaud all your efforts and just wanted to say thank you. Aho deon day.
No.
Thank you to all our listeners on Thongia. I just want to welcome you all, greet you all this September as we start the season of fall. We have our upcoming Kiowa Black Leggings ceremony, October the 12th and 13th at Indian City, USA. I'm getting ready to go camp, so if you are around and like to come down and visit with me, I'll be at my camp at Indian City. I camp in the southwest corner of the arena, so if you'd like to come by, get some coffee or grab some water, I'll be at my camp. And if you even want to sit down and visit with me about current issues in the government, maybe a piece of legislation you'd like to comment on, come and find me. I'll be glad. We are always open at our Tulsa and our Norman office. If you need to email us, you can email us at district7legislature@kiowatribe.org or visit us on our website on kiowatribe.org. Under the legislative tab, there's a District 7 webpage, and that's where we post all our resolutions, all of our current issues that we're working on. We try to keep that updated as best we can. And just want to greet you all this September and wish you all the best from the legislative office here in Norman and Tulsa. I do have a legislative update on several pieces of legislation we were working on this month. The Kiowa Gaming Ordinance for the Gaming Commission is under review, and we are currently awaiting approval. We're going to send that to the National Indian Gaming Commission for their review and remarks and comments. Once we get that back, the legislature is prepared to work with the KCOA and the Kiowa Gaming Commission to approve that document and hopefully get a new ordinance in place for the Gaming Commission. The chairman has handed over a federal charter of incorporation for Kiowa Inc., which is going to be a business corporation for the tribe and hopefully be a revenue-generating resource for the tribe in the future. That legislation is currently with the legislature of the Kiowa tribe being reviewed, and some changes were recommended from our legal counsel. So we'll work through those along with the executive branch, hopefully get something passed here in the next month or two. A couple of things that were approved at this past regular session was the Kiowa tribe is now a member into the Intertribal Buffalo Council, which is a nonprofit organization aimed at educating and training people on how to care for buffalo, how to care for natural resources within our tribal jurisdiction. So we became a member of that organization, and we also appointed the chairman as the delegate to the Intertribal Buffalo Council. Hopefully we'll get a couple of buffalo from the Wichita Mountains Wildlife Refuge, and we'll be able to butcher those ourselves, process them, and distribute the meat for our upcoming encampment. The First Americans Museum also sent us some partnership documentation. It had to be authorized by the legislature. It's an educational tool that they're going to use at the First Americans Museum in Oklahoma City, an educational resource to share with students and schools on who the Kiowa people are, what is our identity, where we're located at. Just little things like that they wanted to create in collaboration with the Kiowa Education Agency. And the last piece of legislation passed this past regular session was the repealment of the Employee Benefits Provider Selection Act of 2017. This opens the gate for the executive branch to explore more options for health insurance and life insurance to offer tribal employees in the future. We hope to, that the chairman will find insurance plan and packages that are more cost-effective and efficient for the tribe to utilize. And that concludes the legislative update. You all have a wonderful day. Deon de aho for tuning in to this episode of Thongia, our District 7 podcast. The music was provided by Mr. Terry Tsotai. For more information on our legislative work, please visit our website, kiowatribe.org/district-7. Thank you all for tuning in. Hey, I'm I don't I.